Okay, so in this video today, we will learn what is the use of no count and what syntax we should follow in order to enable the no count. So first of all, the no count basically is used to disable the number of count that is being returned by the database once we write either insert, delete, or select a statement. Okay, for example, here I will say like select a star from and then employee. If I run this, I'm getting these many returns. Okay, along with that, database will also return the number of rows that has been returned. So for example, here it says 11 rows. If we see the masses, it says 11 rows affected. So this number of rows basically will be getting as a default. Okay, whatever we will be doing, like if we are inserting, what are all the record that we inserted, we get that many rows affected. Likewise for same for delete also. But sometimes we end up with the scenario where we don't want this. Okay, so for that reason here it says like basically no count stops the masses that show the count of number of rows. To be honest, this one is talking about this where it says ki what is the number of count that is being displayed. Okay, so no count stops the masses that currently we are getting. It will stop if we set the no count that shows the count of number of rows affected by the transact SQL statement or a stored procedure from being returned as part of the result set. So when currently we are not using, so by default whenever we run any query, we will get these number of rows affected always. But sometimes just to improve the performance we don't want this, and so if we want to disable this we use the no count. So when we want this to be disabled, in that case we can use set no count and then we can say it to on. So when we say set no count on, it means now it will not display this message where it tells the number of rows affected. Now if we select and if we run this, we will get, still we are getting the output, but the difference is now we are not getting the number of count that were returned from the database. So just to disable that message, we use the no count. By default, it will be off. So if we make it off again, in that case, again it will start returning the value where we can see the number of rows affected. So just to enable and disable this message that the number of rows that is being affected by the database, just to disable this message, we use the no count. So when we set no count on, it means it will stop showing, and when we make it off it will start showing the number of rows affected. By default the value is off only. So this is what basically we have. This is the scenario where we should use the no count set to on or off. Then the advantage is like we for a stored procedure that contains several statements that do not return much actual data, but still it will keep returning you the number of rows. And in that case, to calculate that, to find that, and in the network traffic also, it will impact the performance. Hence, if we disable it by putting set no count on, something like this, it will stop returning the number of rows, and our performance will be greatly enhanced. So here are four procedures that contain the transact SQL loops. Setting no count to on can provide a significant performance boost because of network traffic is greatly reduced. So always we should not use, and just by disabling this by using set no count on, we can enhance the performance as well as network traffic will also be reduced. So this is what we have the use of no count. Now again, like if we make the no count, then that this message will disappear, and now in the message we don't get. So this is what we have about the no count. That's it, nothing but it will just enable and disable the messages which returns the number of count that is being affected. The another thing that we have is a row count. So what is a row count? So currently if we see select star from employee, we are getting the entire record. Okay, and we have disabled, that's why we are not getting the row count. Okay, now if we want, like only for example, currently we have this many record, 11 rows I will say, and I want only few record, maybe five records. So I can simply say select, then I will say top five star, and then it will return that many rows only. So also the another way of achieving the same is we can do using a row count. So what we can do, we can simply say set row count and then number of rows. Okay, so basically if we see the definition of row count, it says row count causes SQL server to stop processing the query after a specified number of rows are returned. So here we have to specify the number of rows that we want to get returned from the database, and once that number will be returned, that many record will be reached. After that it will stop the further processing. So how we can use the set row count? Simply we need to set the row count by some value, and then we can say select a star from employee. So what will happen? Currently, if we run, it will return the entire result. But if we include this also, now still it will try to fetch the entire record. But as soon as this data will reach, it will stop the further processing. So if we see here, if we execute together, you can see now we are getting only five record. Likewise, if we want to get only two record, we can just make it two, and then we will get only two. So row count enables us like exactly how many row count or exactly how many number of record we want to get from the database. So we can say this similar works like top five, like whatever the we were using with this. So this is also a way where with the help of row count we can get the number of record exactly what the number of record that we want, that many record we can specify here, and then we can get that many record. Then the obvious question is, if we want to get the entire record, then what we will do? In here we can remove the top this, and then simply if we run, it will return here select a star from employee, and then since we set it to row count as 0, I mean 2, that's why it is also enabling, like set row count. What it is doing, like for now it has enabled only two number of record, and that's why the same query is impacting this also. And earlier we were getting the entire record, but now we are getting only two record. So question is, if we want to enable that we want entire record, in that case, what number we should specify? Then simply we can use 0. So if we set it 0, now it will start returning the entire record that we have in that table. So this is what basically, so if we want to get the entire record, simply specify 0 and it means the entire record. And if we want to get any specified number, in that case we need to mention that number, and then we are done. Now even if we run this query, you can see the row count has set to 0, means by default it is enabled to display the entire record, and hence we are getting this. So basically in our I can say, if we want to enable exactly whatever the total number of record we want to fetch from the table, in that case row count will help. Also I told you, like if we want, basically suppose here we will get 2, okay, and then I told you it works similar like top 2. So what will happen, this one will set at global level, it will impact this query also, but this query will not. What this does, it will simply go into the table and it will read the top two record only, but it will not set any specific value, so we will get two only. However, if we remove this and then we say a star, this time we will be getting the entire record, okay. But when we run this query set row count to execute, now it set it globally, means even if we run this query, then also we will get only two record. So this is what basically the difference between top n record and a row count set to 2, okay. So whatever we set with the row count, it will be global. And then if we want again to enable for the entire row, simply we can make it 0, and now we can get the entire record displayed. And even the same will be impacting here also. Here also now we will be able to see the entire record. So this is what basically we had for a no count and a row count in SQL Server. I hope it clarifies your doubt. Thank you for listening.